Alright, welcome back to another video. So this will be another update on the progress of the VG30DE TT or 300ZX twin turbo engine reassembly. On this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt to close it up, and what I mean by that is get everything that I need to get on to where I can at least have the oil pan on and the valve covers on. So I've kind of already prepped everything that I need to get that stuff together. And again, this won't really be a DIY. What I'll do is I'll put in the description of this video where I actually went to find the instructions. Really good step-by-step instructions. Between that and the Nissan service manual is what I used to put this back together. Looking at both of those is how I'm going to do this. Okay, so I've already prepped all the stuff behind me for reassembling onto the block. Again, what I'm trying to do here is I want to close up the motor by getting the oil pan and the valve covers on there. What I use to clean it up, I want to show you real quick. I use these Anvil assorted mini brush set that you can get it from Home Depot. It's like $5 if you go to the paint section. It's got 3 different types of brushes on it. It's got the plastic, the brass, and the steel. Brass is really good for cleaning up stuff. If you're worried about scratching it, it won't scratch it. And then the steel is really good for cleaning up more tougher stuff. If you're not, you got to be careful with it because it will scratch, right? So if you're not worried about scratching it, then I say go to town on it with the steel first. All right, so some of the things that we got prepared, obviously we got our block sitting there ready to rock and roll. I've got my heads right here, and what I'll do is in the stage where I need to put the heads onto the block, I'll take each of the cam covers off, make sure they're in the right position, and I will scrub and clean the cams and the caps before I reinstall them just to make sure they're good. One last final inspection. I've got this. This is the knock sensor. This one I think is supposed to be reinforced from Z1. I may try to wrap some heat tape around that. We'll see. And then the block, and then the motor mounts that we're going with. These are the Z1. They're adjustable motor mounts. I like a couple things about this. The fact is they're a little bit smaller, so I think it's going to give me a little bit more clearance in there if I need to do work. Also, it's adjustable, and it's a lot cheaper. You could also rebuild these if you ever need to, which I don't think you'd really need to. These are supposed to last a lot longer than the factory ones, but buying a set of these was cheaper than trying to get factory ones. So the downside is I have heard they vibrate a little bit. We'll find out. We'll see how bad that is. Clean these up. These are the manifold exhausts. This is the I think it's a radiator bracket. Clean that up. Cleaned up the motor mounts as good as I could. These came out okay. I wish they would have, come up cleaner. Maybe you could paint them if you wanted to make them look real good, but good enough I think for this build. Also, I've got the manifold. I think this is like the lower manifold or something like that. Scrub this thing pretty good. Got it looking nice and shiny. And when you clean these parts, if they're aluminum, you got to make sure that you dry all the water off of them. If not, you'll come back and there'll be like a little white film on there. Here's the oil tree. Clean that up pretty good. And what I did was after I scrubbed it, I finally got my compressor back. I blew all the water off of them, and then I soaked them in WD-40 so that way they wouldn't corrode. I got the crank bolt and that plate. This is the seal I think this is the rear main oil seal, like holder or whatever. This is going to be the oil. I'm sorry. This is the water line that goes down the middle of the block. Clean that up pretty good. I think this engine that I got, I know it was a Japanese engine. I think it was probably pretty low mileage because a lot of stuff was cleaner than what I'm used to seeing. And then the valve covers, right? Just clean them as good as I could. Some of them have these little plates in them, so they were kind of hard to get to. I couldn't really get to behind them. I just kind of flushed them out to make sure there wasn't anything hiding in there. Scrubbed it real good. So got all those cleaned up along with some of these other pieces that I know have to go on. I did see that these things were a little bit corroded, and so I cleaned them up. But then I was kind of debating on whether to buy them or not because they're like $30 a pop. I went ahead and bought some brand new ones. So I'm gonna probably get rid of these old ones and put brand new ones in. Some of the other stuff that we're gonna be doing, we got ARP studs for the head. These are all the bolts and stuff from when I disassembled it. These are the I guess like little pins or whatever, little dowels that go in right here. So we'll put those in before we put the head back in. And then also in here in this box is a brand new oil pump. So that's also one of the first things to go on. All right, so this is the these are the solenoids, the cam solenoids. I cleaned this one up, but it turns out I had previously ordered some brand new ones, so we're gonna be throwing brand new ones in there, both the left and the right side. Also, these are the head gaskets I'm gonna be using, Cometic gasket. I've also got this in this box right here is a seal kit, so that's the complete rebuild kit that comes whenever you order a complete rebuild kit. And I've also got here's my, these are going to be the manifolds we use, and this is the manifold that goes between the turbo and the block. So I think these are AMS. Yeah, these are AMS manifolds. The guy from Z1 recommended those, so we're going to throw those on. And then last but not least, and this was actually one of the more expensive things that we had to pick up, was the Turbo 2 oil pan. Now, if you're doing a conversion, you're going to have to either buy a Turbo 2 oil pan, which this one was like $400, or you can just take your NA oil pan and weld these things on. So keep that in mind if you're doing a twin turbo conversion. You need the I think this is where the turbos are going to drain into the oil pan, so you need those. Again, one of the most expensive things I think I've had to buy for this build. Pretty expensive. That I actually didn't think it was going to be that much. I didn't think it was going to cost that much. So. I just want to provide a quick update of the status of this, getting the heads on the block, getting everything closed up, like I said. So I kind of got hung up. So I was able to get the oil pan on and everything associated with the oil pan. I was able to get the rear seal, the oil pump. I don't know, maybe come around to the front, Joe, so they can see the front of the engine. So I was able to get all this stuff on, no issues. Got this head on okay. And you could see, here's the Cometic gaskets that we're using. Oh yeah, got the knock sensor on, and then got this on. So the instructions that I'm following say to put this on first, then put the head on. Honestly, I don't think that makes any sense. If I were to do this again, I would put the heads on first and then put this on second, which I'm pretty confident it will fit. So if anybody knows for sure, let me know in the comments. But essentially what happens is if you're running ARP studs and you put the studs in first, you're going to have an issue getting the heads on because they're not going to clear right here. So what I did was I did not put the studs on. I put the head on first, and then I put the ARP studs in. The problem with that is these holes got a little bit corroded. I don't know if it was from when I cleaned it out or when the machine shop cleaned it out. So basically, I noticed that some of them weren't threading all the way. So I basically had to pull the head back off and clean out the threads really good. I just soaked it with PB Blaster, Q-tipped it to death. I think you'll see that in some of the time lapse that I did. Did that, and then I was able to get the head on, the studs in, no problem. The second problem I ran into is, come back around here, Jonah, is these caps. So I noticed that, I don't know if you could see that in the video. Yeah, you can see that pretty good. So there's some bite marks on the sides, and it looks like maybe, zoom back out, Joe, like somebody grabbed something. They grabbed the caps like this, and pretty sure it was the machine shop because these marks weren't on here when we dropped them off. And then, no big deal there, right? It's just cosmetic, but on the spots where it came really close to the edge, it pushed the metal, and they were like just little pieces of metal hitting the camshafts right there. So what I did was I pulled them all off, inspected them really closely, and then basically took some wet sandpaper and WD-40 and sanded smooth. Again, you don't want to like take off a lot of material. You just want to knock down that raised surface just a little bit and then smooth it out. Just did that real quick, and then to test to make sure that worked. I'm not sure if that was in a time lapse or not, but I took all the caps off, I pulled the lifters out, and then I dropped the cams in there and then spun the cams to make sure that it didn't bind up on any of these and wasn't scratching or wasn't getting hung up on any of these surfaces. So I did this head. This head's good. Now, the thing that I ran into when I was doing that was the lifters, right? So here, these are the lifters, and hopefully one of these comes out really easy. There we go. That's the lifter, right? And this motor is unique in that it does not have, there's no shims, right? So this is a hydraulic lifter, and there's a check valve in there. Basically, the balance of the fluid in there gives you just the right gap that you need, or valve lash, I guess is the correct term for it. So that way, you don't need to adjust your valves. They're just always the right size, if that makes any sense. The shim is always the right size. So what I noticed when I pulled these out, and again, I pulled these out so that way I could spin the cam inside of there without pushing down the valves, and to make sure that it was good and wasn't binding. What I found was that these things hadn't been cleaned, and then I looked inside and they were pretty mucky. Now, I think normally that's not that big of a deal, as long as they work, which all of them seem to work. The downside with this one is that I remember what the motor looked like when we took it apart, right? So the motor was blown, and maybe I'll throw a picture in here. The motor was, one of the rods were broken, but on top of that, it looked like water had gotten into the intake somehow, and a lot of the intake valves were, I think both the valve covers, right, Jonah, had oil and water in them. Yeah. And it was really, a lot of the cams were rusted, and there was like, if you've ever seen oil and water mix, they don't mix very well, but when they do get forced to mix, it turns like kind of like a white frothy, it's like a sludge. And so I'm pretty sure all that is inside of these hydraulic lifters. So what I'm going to have to do next is go through and clean the hydraulic lifters. Now, you can pick up hydraulic lifters brand new for like 60 bucks a pop, but there's like, I don't know, whatever 6 times 4 is. What's that math? So is it 32, I think? 32. That gets pretty expensive, 60 bucks a pop. So there's a how-to video on YouTube on how to take apart the lifters, clean them, put it back together again. I'm going to do that for all of them, so that way I know that they're functioning good. So, yeah, and then I'm also going to make sure that the caps on here because there's some more bite marks. Let's see if you could show that right there, Jonah. Like this one, this is a really good example, right? Really close to the edge. More than likely some of this metal on the inside surface here is going to be dented in, and I'm going to have to smooth it out. So yeah, piston engines are a lot more work than rotary engines for sure. A lot more moving pieces, a lot more that could go wrong. So I want to make sure that everything's nice and tight. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a time lapse of me doing that, because it's going to be real boring and it's going to take forever. But maybe I will. But I will definitely link the video that's a how-to on how to take apart the hydraulic lifters and clean them out, put them back together. A quick updated status on where we're at right now. I did get the other head on. I think this was the head I was struggling with in the last time lapse. The problem I was running into was the dowels. When I hammered them in, they're a little bit mushroomed, and so the head wasn't sliding on, and so I had to file those mushroomed, like where the metal had kind of gotten squished down. I had to file that down, and once I did that, boom, it slid right on. So if you're doing this, just make sure you don't hammer those dowel pins in too hard to where they mushroom. Also, I didn't film it because I got a little bit sick, and I was just trying to do some work here and there. When I was feeling okay, I went ahead and mounted the motor mounts. I got on both sides, I got I believe this is the power steering mount on. I got the AMS headers. These are the version 2 headers, AMS headers with the heat shields on. Now I did have to clearance it a little bit. Not sure if you can see yet right here. I had to cut a piece out because it basically went in right there. And then this side, on this side, had to cut that piece out right there. Just a little piece right here, plus a little bit of hammer work to get them to fit. If you're running these AMS headers, just keep in mind that you have to pull out all the studs, and then you have to run the short stud in the back because of the clearance right there. And then also what I'm noticing is that the bracket that goes right here, which is this bracket right here, is gonna run into some clearance issues with this specific piece right here. So it's gonna be really close. This part right here is going to be really close, so I'll have to figure out what to do about that. And then one thing I ran into was the old tree goes right here, right? Which is this piece. And then there's a piece that threads into here. I don't know where it is. I don't remember taking it out. I looked through all my parts like 2 or 3 times, didn't see it. I don't know if it was just never in there or what happened, which I don't know how the motor would work without it in there, because I think it'd have problems recirculating the oil. But either I took it off and I forgot where I put it, or it was never in there, but I ordered another one. So anyways, next step to get this going is I'm going to go ahead and drop the cams in. Now, when you drop the cams in, you got to be very careful because you don't want the valves to collide with the pistons. in here, right? So right now I've got the piston with the piston number 1 at top dead center, and when I drop the cams in, I'm gonna make sure per the service manual that there's a little dot or a little pin on each cam that it's at the 12 o'clock position. Now my plan is to, if you notice when you assemble, when you do the timing belt on these things, and you're supposed to align all the timing marks, including this timing mark, right? But the problem here is when you have the cams put into the heads, the cam gears aren't necessarily on there. So what I may do is just drop the cams in at the 12 o'clock position, put the gears on temporarily to make sure that they're in the right position, and then bolt them all down. Because what you don't want to happen is you don't want the valves to collide with the piston, right? You don't want to tighten down the cams into a position where they're going to hit the pistons. So I think as long as you follow the directions of the manual, you know, keep the pins at the 12 o'clock position on the cams, and you have this at top dead center, they should not collide, and then you should be able to rotate the cam until it's at the exact mark that it needs to be once you get the cam gears on there. And by the way, we did scrub up the cam gears, got them all nice and clean. They were pretty rusted before. I mean, there's still a little bit of rust, but overall they look pretty good. Cleaned those up, cleaned these pipes up, this pipe up also. I am missing a temp sensor, I've got to order that. Clean this thing up right here. Got the fuel rail cleaned up and pulled the injectors out of there. That was kind of hard. And I've got everything laid out to go back together, right? So I've got new thermostat, all the springs that go right behind the cam gears, all the pulleys and bearings that I need, like you're doing a 60K maintenance update. I got the new valve solenoids, water pumps in that bag, these things, right? So I'll probably end this video with me throwing the cam covers on. Oh yeah, I did the dipstick too. And then I'll do the rest in another video, because this video is already turning to be pretty long. So here we go. All right, as you can see, we've made progress on getting the engine together. Kind of like I said when I started the video, closing up the bottom and the top. So got the old pan on, got the valve covers on. Pretty straightforward, as you saw in the time lapse. Just make sure that you put RTV in all the cracks, so that way it seals nice and, you know, generous amounts of RTV, because you'd rather put too much than not enough and then it leak. Threw these things right here on. I think I'm gonna call it quits for this video. Still a lot more work to go. The next steps will be throwing on all these timing gears, and then there's this this timing gear here, which I got a new one that we're throwing on, and then the fuel rail. We got new injectors we're throwing in. 615s that we're gonna be throwing in there, and then throwing the covers on, right? If you want to see more projects like this and stay up to date with Project Z32, make sure that you subscribe. We're out.